Big changes.
This process, this repetitive discharging of neurons, is in a rhythmic fashion, appears to be setting up those neurons and their neighbors for making changes. It makes them more plastic. It makes them able to change for changes that are coming along in the next sleep stage, which is REM sleep. Okay. Now, in REM sleep, you're latching onto all sorts of diverse memories, all sorts of widely separated things, sort of combing them together to see if they fit, to interact, and so forth. For that kind of interaction, you've got to have the brain's general manager working, because it requires some kind of centralized management.
And is that the hippocampus?
No, those are the mechanisms of consciousness that are working on this. But in deep sleep, there are virtually no mechanisms of consciousness. Now, your mechanisms of consciousness are working in dreams because you're conscious in your dreams.
Right.
And in deep sleep, there are virtually no dreams, and there are the wavelengths that are of discharge. You can track consciousness in the brain this way, and if you all the indications are that there's very limited activation of the mechanisms of consciousness in deep sleep. And if you wake somebody from deep sleep and say, "What were you dreaming?" they'd say nothing. If you say, "Do you remember any thoughts or emotions or feelings?" they say, "Oh yeah, there were some of those, and I can tell you what they were." But they usually don't qualify as what we think of as dreams.
It seems to be in line with night terrors.
Now, exactly. If you're in deep sleep and doing this kind of processing, you're not having dreams, right? But something happens in this system. You aren't processing entirely old information. The emotion centers are working, and if something happens to set off the amygdala, then that's the 911 system. And it will send off, it will start your heart pounding, it will start you sweating, it will start vigorous activation of all sorts of things within the brain that are designed to promote sudden action and survival, and fight or flight response, the whole works. And however, this is not going to be accompanied by pictures or a story or ancient memories or anything else. It's just sheer terror, because the mechanisms of consciousness really aren't working. What's more, the damn thing is very hard to turn off. So if some parent comes up to you and tries to shake you, no, you're doing this internal processing. And what's more, you've set off something very much like a smoke alarm in your kitchen. So it's very hard to talk to somebody while a smoke alarm is blaring.
Right.
And while they're not very receptive to outside information anyway. So you can shake somebody almost indefinitely in night terrors, and it won't have the slightest influence. And you can call to them, you can cajole them. Eventually the amygdala depletes its reservoirs, or you go to another sleep stage, or something happens so that the tank runs dry somewhere and the thing ends. Or you may wake up with a feeling of...
So you essentially run out of crazy juice and you can secrete no more?
Well, let's say the amygdala has its own reservoirs of acetylcholine, which is an exciter, neuromodulator.
It's one of the three major neuromodulators?
One of the four major neuromodulators, and it is dedicated to making neurons more likely to discharge. So it excites things wherever it is. You send this all around the system the way the amygdala can, then you're going to excite everybody, right?
Right.
But the problem is that eventually that reservoir is limited. Eventually it's going to run out of acetylcholine. So that's one of the things that might happen. I really don't know. I haven't ever read anything about this, but in time there's some change happens, something happens so that something in this system stops generating pure terror, and then you either wake up or you go back to sleep and don't remember anything about it in the morning.
It makes sense. I mean, if it's running off of a finite reservoir and it's running on overdrive.
Yeah, that's right.
Makes sense it would end eventually.
Eventually, it is a self-limiting thing.
All right. So, you want to get to the fence?
Yeah.
And for another $5, you can have another one of Dr. Leonard's lectures.